if anybody's sitting around the edge, you can come and join us again. We've got a great panel, expert speakers, and a very important topic to cover today, building a resilient and robust junior sector in the kingdom. I'm going to just quickly walk through the 5 panelists, our star panelists here today. They're going to give a little overview of themselves, and then we'll have some questions. So starting here on my left, we've got Sean Wade, CEO, Power Metal Resources, PLC. Ross Bappu, Senior Strategic Advisory Partner, Resource Capital Funds. In the middle, Pini Oldhouse, as I've been told today, CEO of Cove Capital. Tim Coughlin, Director of Royal Road Arabia. And at the end, Marcel de Groot, President, Pathway Capital Limited. Marcel, why don't you start us off, give a brief overview of yourself, why you're here, why you're relevant, and some more information on yourself and your company.
I'm with Pathway Capital. For the last 25 years, we've been working on creating successful companies in the mining industry. We've been very fortunate to work with a number of the best explorationists, such as David Lowell, John Hunt, David Dowd, and as a result of that, we've been involved in a number of significant discoveries. Also have exposure to production, being involved in the creation of Sandstorm and working with Christian Malau and creation of Equinox.
Great. Okay, so in reward for being so fast, I'll ask you the first question there. Based on your experience, what does Saudi Arabia need to do to be successful in mineral exploration?
Well, I think they're doing a good job now. I think the key is being transparent, creating mining code that works, approving claims and applications in a timely manner, ensuring that the ground is being worked as opposed to being held by speculators. And if you create the right conditions, then the best explorationists will show up, and that's the key to the success, is attracting the top talent.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marcel. Moving just to Marcel's right, Tim Coughlin.
I'll try and, I don't think I'll go into why I'm supposed to be relevant, but a bit of background. So I'm the CEO of a company called Royal Road Minerals, which is TSX listed. And we have a 50-50 operating joint venture, exploration joint venture here in Saudi Arabia with a group called MSP Holdings based in Jeddah. And for the last 12 months or so, we've been busy generating and reviewing targets in the field.
So I'm going to quickly jump in because a year ago, almost today, you were at a part of this conference where you met your partner, and then you've had some great news today. Maybe tell everybody what that is.
Yeah, so we met our partner at the speed dating event that they did 12 months ago, which was literally a 5-minute pitch to Saudis that we'd never met before. And today the good news is that we were awarded a tender down in southeast of Bisha, so southeastern part of the Saudi Arabian Shield, a project called Jabal Sahibaya, which is about 280 square kilometers of complicated sort of polymetallic mineralization, which we're looking forward to trying to figure out.
Okay. Actually, that brings me to one of your questions here. What role do you think government should play in building a robust and resilient junior mining sector? And you're a perfect example of what that answer might be.
Well, I think Marcel sort of covered exactly what they ought to be doing. It's a bit of a time-space issue. It depends where you are and what government you're working with, what environment you're investing in. But I think the key thing in Saudi Arabia right now is proof of concept, which is granting licenses. Staying out. I mean, I think if the regulation here has developed to a point where it's probably one of the best in the world, in my view, grant licenses, leave the financing to people like Marcel and Ross and others, let them deal with that, but just keep the regulation clean, clear, and quick.
Great, thank you. In the middle, Penny, can you take it from here, Penny?
Sure. On the question or my introduction?
Just some background on yourself.
Sure.
To start with.
So Penny Oldhouse, CEO of Cove Capital. It's a US-Australian investment and consulting group in the mining industry, particularly critical minerals. We were the founders of USA Rare Earth, which has developed the first vertically integrated mine-to-magnet supply chain in the United States. We've also got investments in critical minerals projects in Kazakhstan, in Argentina, and other parts of the globe.
Great. So one question that's sort of specific to you, I guess. How do we get more U.S. mining juniors interested in critical minerals projects versus gold projects, for example?
Yeah, I mean, the first question I get asked when I go to different countries is how come there are so few US juniors exploring or applying for licenses? We see a lot of Australians, Canadians, etc. I think what the gentlemen have said before about streamlining the permitting process, having the mining code in place, but also providing good targets for juniors to come into the country. So if all the good exploration targets are going to go to the majors or to others, there's not going to be a lot of incentive for juniors to come here, and it's going to make it difficult for juniors to get financing for projects that don't carry much interest for investors. I'm afraid there might have to be some financial incentives as well to get juniors in to develop greenfields projects, whether it's on the stock market like flow-through shares in Canada, or whether it's in the Kingdom with incentives the government can offer here, but we do have to get juniors to tackle those greenfields projects.
On the U.S. side, I did actually see somebody from a U.S. delegation in the speaker's lounge today too, so perhaps there's things afoot on that end in terms of attracting U.S. juniors. Ross, why don't you take it next?
Sure. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here. My name is Ross Bapu. I'm with Resource Capital Funds. We're a private equity fund based out of Denver. We pioneered the concept of private equity back in 1998. So over the last 26 years, we've made well over 200 investments in 50 countries around the world and in 30 commodities, different commodities, and pretty much at all stages from exploration through to developed assets or operating assets, and even reclamation projects. I think, when I look at Saudi Arabia, my background, first of all, I guess background is metallurgical engineering and mineral economics, and I've kind of combined the combination of technical and financial skills over my career. We're actually very keen on Saudi Arabia. We don't have investments here. As I mentioned, we've invested all over the world, but this is a unique opportunity to come into a place that I think has really been underexplored. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity to build a junior exploration industry here. I think the Saudi government has done a great job. When I look at the legislation they put in place, the new mining laws, they support Western investment. They provide debt financing for projects. I think the key now is to find good targets and provide money to exploration companies to actually come in and do their exploration. So I'll stop there, but I think there's a lot to talk about
We're
here.
going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Yeah.
Okay.
So, just building on what you said about some of the challenges, I guess you were bringing up in terms of capital. As a mining investor, what are you specifically looking for in juniors and to make it that investment decision in Saudi?
Yeah, it's so when we look at going into a new jurisdiction, I think the biggest concern is the security of title. When a company comes in and stakes ground, do they actually have the rights to mine it, develop it? Secondly, is there a consistent government, and in terms of is there creeping expropriation or changes in tax regulations? I think Saudi's got all of what we need. So when we look at a jurisdiction, that's critically important. When we look at other aspects, does the team have the right skill set? Does the asset, does the project stand up? Is it a high quality asset? Have they done their job doing their homework on evaluating the asset? We'll take raw drill hole data and do our own interpretation of the resource, but we want to make sure that the resource really exists, because everything starts with the resource at the end of the day. So again, I think Saudi has all the makings of building a great junior exploration area, but there's a lot of work to be done to get there. And I know the Saudis are very impatient. They want to see mines being built tomorrow, but it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, thank you. So, and Sean, you're one of those groups that will find one of those mines in time. Maybe just give some background of yourself, the company, and what you're up to here.
Yeah, thank you, Jim, and thank you very much for having me. I'm Sean Wade. I'm the CEO of Power Metal Resources. We are a UK-listed junior explorer and project incubator. We have involvement in 11 projects around the world, and we're very involved with transition metals and battery metals. in various geographies, and we're looking to invest in the Arabian Shield, in Saudi Arabia and Oman together. And we've had some fantastic meetings already and some really great feedback from potential partners and also investors.
So as a project generator, maybe tell the audience what that is and how that might give you an advantage here in the kingdom.
So what we seek to do is take very early stage assets and undertake cost-effective and methodical exploration, which can mean various things. It can mean geophysics, geochemistry, it can mean early stage drilling. And what we're fundamentally seeking to do is to add value to those assets at the early stage. Now, typically what we try to do is to create that value and then crystallize that value for investors, either through a spin-out IPO from our model, or a strategic joint venture, or some other form of monetization. When we look at Saudi Arabia, however, the opportunity set here really is entering into joint venture arrangements right at the very beginning. And I think we'll all congratulate Tim on a fantastic piece of news today, and it's a great example of how junior mining companies can succeed here, is in partnership with other license holders and operators, and that's really what we're seeking to do. So I think fundamentally over time, the value creation can come out in a number of different forms. It's early days for us here in Saudi Arabia, but we're very excited about the opportunity and looking forward to the investment.
Yeah, I think your ability to do that style of business is great, to be a conduit from external funding sources, but then you'll also be able to do deals here in country. Tim, back to you, since your name was mentioned. You actually talked to me a little bit about the lack of long-term capital support, and it's a major issue facing junior companies all over the world. And what would you propose as a solution here in the kingdom?
Did I write that question for myself this time of the afternoon? Look, I think we all know that exploration at least can be done better. It needs to be better funded, and there are plenty of metrics out there that you can look at, and discovery rates is the obvious one. And the real issue, if you think about it, is the herding mentality of retail investors, because institutions are there on your share register, but they rarely buy, on the board. And so, unless you've got that starling murmuration sort of style of retail interest, then you're sort of you're on a progressive downward slope of devaluation, which then means that you can't finance. I don't think that should ever work I think it did work for mineral exploration for a short period of time, probably from about 2008 to 2013, but I can't see that it's actually worked since. And so I think we need to think about that. It's really that early part of the value-adding curve, that grassroots exploration up to feasibility, or even just before feasibility. At that point, when you've got something to report publicly, then go public. My personal view is I don't think we should be public up until that point. So, what do we do? So, I think probably the industry could look at a venture capital approach, obviously private equity at that early stage of the curve. It needs perhaps some sort of input and there's a role to play there for the multilaterals, the IAD, the EBRD, and the IFC, and etc. I think that's where they could play a really useful, responsible role. And I think in terms of there's a lot of junior companies out there, and in terms of tidying up that backyard, maybe there's a role for institutions to play, sort of a carrot and stick role where they can force mergers. Amongst some of find the right group in the right region, offer them some financing if they merge, let them get on with it from that sort of point on. But there's so much tidying up to be done in the junior sector, and that's which has led the previous structure of the sector has led to misallocation of capital, and this general decline in discovery rates, and so I'm sort of resting this at your feet, guys. I think there's a role for institutions to play in kind of forcing a lot of these companies to consolidate and focus.
Ross, do you consider yourself a potential solution?
Well, look, we have a product that does invest in exploration companies. We have what we call the RCF Opportunities Fund, and they'll make kind of $5 million size investments in junior development or junior exploration companies. And it's been very successful. It's done a great job. But look, I think when you talk about coming into Saudi Arabia, the thing we look for when we make an investment is how are we going to get out of that investment in some finite period of time. And right now, under a private structure, it's pretty hard for us to find a way out. So the merger way is good, but there isn't a junior stock exchange, if you will, a TSXV that equivalent. And I think the Saudi government, that might be a good way to help stimulate a junior sector, is allow these companies to go public and provide a source of capital for them, and provide us as an investor a way to get out at some point in time. So yeah, I do think there's a solution.
Yeah. And Pinny, how can you attract junior miners to do work at a greenfields level, do you think, in the kingdom? What types of things would attract a junior mining company to uproot from North America or London and do business here?
Yeah, I think some of the things that the other gentlemen have covered already, there has to be a mining code in place that when juniors look at Saudi Arabia, they say it's inherently a good place to invest, it's a good place to operate as an exploration company. But as Ross has said, I think there's going to have to be some financial incentives. We've got a couple of juniors in our portfolio, and investors want to see them on being traded publicly because they're worried about the exit, and they've got a year, 2 years, but sort of this indefinite period they don't want to stay in. The markets aren't doing well either, so it's a bit of a conundrum for juniors. The investors want them to go public, but they're not getting the valuations they should. So having something like an exchange here in the kingdom, where you allow people to participate as investors in junior mining companies here, is one idea. We've been floating around the idea between the panel, but in general, about a critical minerals fund. And maybe there needs to be a critical minerals fund set up, not just to look at companies at PFS or DFS stage, but at exploration stage. So I think all of these ideas sort of have to come together in order to stimulate junior exploration in the kingdom and globally.
That's great. And building on that, Sean, any other developments that in addition to what's been said in the panel that might build the robust nature?
Yeah, I would start by echoing the comments really, and I think in particular this point about a functioning capital market, because a market for juniors or any market for that matter, it's a meeting place for capital and the corporates, and I think investors are looking for returns. Corporates are looking for the lowest cost of capital possible. So the more liquidity that the capital has, the better off both sides are. And I think what we want to do here is to attract investment from within Saudi Arabia, from the family offices and the high net worths that exist here that can invest in mining companies, but also to bring capital in from outside. And the better functioning market, the other regulatory points that have also been made, will assist that. I know there has been some talk of it. I think Ross mentioned a sort of TSX, a junior sector, and I think as if you like, a sort of a call to action, that is exactly, I think, what we as juniors would like to see. The ability for investors to get in, but then also to get out. And what our model does is, as I said, it crystallizes value and monetizes it, but you have to be able to exit at some point. So to give investors the opportunity to participate in the sector here is great, but they need the opportunity to realize that investment.
Thank you. Okay, not only is merit necessary when you're allocating dollars to explorers, but here in the kingdom, as Marcel was mentioning it, it's a big component of granting the permits and the licenses. That is this the right team to acquire the land and be able to advance it? So, Marcel, you mentioned the top talent being a key to success. Can you expand on that?
Well, we're big believers in mineral exploration is a really tough business. We're big believers in Pareto's law. In exploration, what that means is the top 20% of explorers find 80% of the projects. The third degree of that is the top 1% find half the projects. And so what we try to do is try and find that 1%. We've been very fortunate to work with some of them. You look at people like David Lowell, who found 17 world-class projects. Andy Swartout in Peru, half a dozen. Here in the local geology, the Arabian-Nubian Shield, Dave Dowd, Greg Davis, they've been involved in 4, 5, 6 significant discoveries within this geology, 20 plus years. And so that's been our approach. I mean, I don't know, Jim, you've been pretty successful last few years in particular. What do you think?
I told you not to throw a question back at me. I'm uncomfortable in public.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Those that are productive do most of the producing, and everybody else just sort of lets them run ahead. And so I think if the kingdom is really interested in meeting its goals, it has to let the exploration companies with the successful track records drill the holes and find the deposits. That's a critical thing. And I think that they're doing that. It's an amazing time right now for everybody. It's very exciting because the ball is just going to start rolling right now, starting with companies like Tim's announced today. So I hope that we finished early. I'm not sure. But I really want to thank the panelists. There's a lot of knowledge on this stage, this dais. And again, I want to thank our hosts for building this conference into one of the best in the world in only 3 years.
Yeah.
Have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.